Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this tutorial, you are going to learn how to build an event-driven data pipeline using Amazon S3, AWS Lambda, and DynamoDB table. So what we are going to do is to set up an S3 bucket that will automatically trigger a Lambda function whenever a CSV file is uploaded, and the Lambda function in turn will populate a DynamoDB table. Let's get started. Alright, so we are going to start by creating a S3 bucket. So I'll search for S3. Then I'll click on create bucket. I'm going to call my bucket CSV upload bucket Kobina. So this is my bucket name. Then I'll proceed to create the bucket. Now that you have our S3 bucket created, we'll proceed to create our DynamoDB table. So I'll search for DynamoDB. Here I'm going to create a new table. I'm going to call my table upload file data. And then my partition key, I'm going to call it record ID. And then I'll click on customize settings, and then I'll ensure I have DynamoDB standard selected and then on demand selected. Then I'll proceed to create my DB table. So we are done with our DB table. As our table is being created, let's now proceed to create our Lambda function. So I'll search for Lambda. And under my Lambda function, I'm going to create a new function. I'll call it process CSV upload. For the runtime, I'm going to select Python 3.1. Then I'll leave everything as default and then create my Lambda. Alright, for the purpose of this quick tutorial, I already have the Lambda code. I'll do all to share the code with you guys. So I'm going to replace this code. So basically the code I have is a very simple Python code. All that we are doing is we are trying to import some few libraries. Basically we are importing our Pandas, Boto3 and some few other stuff. And then we are doing some few checks, checking to see if the file that was uploaded ends with a .csv or a .xlx. And then we will then proceed to read from that file, and then we can then put that item into the DynamoDB table. So that's pretty much what our Lambda is doing. So I'll proceed to deploy my Lambda. So now that I've deployed my Lambda, there is one thing I have to do. Because I'm importing the Pandas library, the Pandas library doesn't come by default. So I'm going to add that as a Lambda layer. So I'll click on layers, and then I'll do add layer. And then under AWS layers, there is one for Pandas. So I'm going to select that. And then I'll choose this version. And then I'll click on add. Alright. So now what we are going to do is to proceed to add a trigger to our Lambda function. So I'll click on add trigger, and for source I'm going to search for S3, and for the bucket I'm going to search for the bucket we created, that is the CSV upload trigger. Event type, we want to do a put event. That is when someone uploads something into our S3 bucket. And suffixes, for the prefix we are for the suffix we are going to check .csv. So what this means is we want our Lambda function to be invoked when someone uploads a file that ends with .csv into our S3 bucket. I'm going to acknowledge this. So basically what this is telling us that in order to prevent a cyclic loop of a sort, we are just advising you not to have your input and output coming into the same S3 bucket. We are not really doing that, so I'm just going to acknowledge and then click add. And now by doing this, what happens is we've added a trigger to our Lambda function. So if I come back into our S3 bucket and I come to properties, you will see now we have this event notification. So what this means is anytime you upload stuff into our S3 bucket, it will trigger our permission CSV upload Lambda function. So what I'm going to do next now is to set or work on some few permissions for our Lambda function. So I'll come to configuration, select permissions, and then I'll open the row that was created by default. Remember, we didn't create the row initially, so I'm just going to modify whatever row was created by Lambda by default. So I'm going to create an inline policy. So the first service we are looking at is S3. So what we want to do is I'll search for S3, and then in S3 we want our Lambda to be able to perform a get object operation. That is, we want our Lambda to be able to get or read from the file we uploaded. So I'm going to select that, and for the resource I'm going to use star for now. I won't specify a specific ARM for this project. Then I'll proceed to add the next permission we require, and that permission is going to be for the next service we are looking at. That is our DynamoDB table. So I'll search for DynamoDB, and then with the DynamoDB we want to perform a put item operation. That is, we want to read from our S3 bucket and then write into our DynamoDB table. So I'm going to add that permission, and then I'll click on next. Yeah, for the policy name I'm just going to do process CSV policy. It can be anything, you can give it any other name. So I'll create a policy, and there we have it. Everything is all configured. Alright, so now we are going to test our implementation. I have a sample CSV for my local which I'm going to upload. So I'll just come in here, click on upload, then I'll drag and drop it from my local. So I have this sample CSV file. So I'm going to click on upload, and once I click on it and then the file has been uploaded successfully, let's go into our Lambda logs to see what is happening. So I'll come to my Lambda function and click on monitor, and then I'll click on view CloudWatch logs. So there we have our log stream. I'm going to open it and see if my Lambda is working fine. Alright, I can see the Lambda was invoked. Let me check my database. So this is the database. Let me check to see. I'll click on explore table items, and as you can see, now we have entries into our DynamoDB table. So there we have it. We created a new table, and then we're able to upload, and then it's working fine. So this is how you can easily set up an event-driven solution using S3, Lambda, and DynamoDB table. So a quick recap of what we've done so far. So what we did was to start by creating our S3 bucket. We then proceeded to create our DynamoDB table, and then we went ahead to create our Lambda function. After creating our Lambda function, we proceeded to add the Pandas layer to our Lambda code, and then we went ahead to work on the permission associated with the Lambda. So we proceeded to add some few policies, that's S3 get object and DynamoDB put item. We created it as an inline policy, and then we came to upload a file into our S3 bucket. But before doing that, we went ahead to add the S3 bucket as a trigger to our Lambda function, and then now everything is working fine. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.